Okay guys, so you are going to make this man. Now you're going to cut out all his parts. He's kind of like a paper doll, and you're going to put him on a new background. Now you're going to get this from group shares, from your teacher, resources, selections, CutOut Man. Okay, now you need to make a new page. So go to File, New, and you're going to make a page the size of 8.5 inches by 11 inches. Or you could use the preset that says Print, and then you click on Letter Size and hit Create. And then hit OK. So now we have a blank page. Now we're going to grab the gradient tool. Oftentimes this is confused with the rectangle tool, so just be careful that you are actually going to the gradient tool. So this here is the rectangle, but up here is the gradient tool. Sometimes it is hidden in the drawer with the paint bucket, so just make sure you're going to the gradient tool. This tool will allow you to fill a background from using one color that will fade into another color. Now once you are on that tool, you go to the options bar, and this will allow you to set up your color. So you want to double click where you're seeing a little preview of a gradient. So just double click, and the gradient editor, I think it's very helpful to pick a gradient that already has 3 colors. Like one of these up here, like this one. Now down here is called the gradient bar. We want to change this. We can make this gradient be any color that we want by clicking on the tiny boxes on the bottom of the gradient bar. When you double click on those tiny boxes, a color picker will appear. When choosing a color, you're able to slide the hue slider up and down to pick the hue, and then you move the little circle around to get the exact color that you want. Then you click OK when you're done. And the color that we want is something that looks parchment or old, so kind of a yellow-orange color that looks like it's kind of light, and something that looks like it could be an old paper. Then you're going to double-click to create a box in the middle of this bar, and we want that set to white. Now double-click on the right side to set a box. And that way you can place a color in here, and you want about the same color as what you had on the left hand side. It could be a little bit darker or lighter, but you want to get the same general color. And then when you have that color picked, you're going to hit OK. So basically we're telling the computer that on one end of the strip we want it a color, in the middle we want it white, and on the other end we want it another color again. When you're satisfied with the color, you're going to hit OK. Now the gradient that I picked, the original color, it was set to making it transparent on the right hand side. So the box on the top, if I click that little box, it will show me what the opacity is, and I want to set it to 100%. Options bar, you'll see these little boxes, and you want the one that's all the way on the left. That is called the linear gradient. Now we want the linear gradient, and you just are going to click at the top of your page and pull straight down, and this is going to allow you to paint in a gradient. Again, you can do it as many times as you want, but you just want that straight down, and now we have a gradient. And now we can get ready to use both of our files. So I'm going to make sure I have the guy open, so the CutOut Man file. I'm getting it off my computer. Again, you will get it from group shares and the from your teacher, resources, selections, and you'll go to the CutOut Man. So here we go. Now you want to go up to View, and you want to go to Window and go to 2 up vertical. This will have one file on the right and one file on the left, and it makes it a lot easier to navigate. You need to locate the Quick Selection tool, and you need to set it to the Add to Selection in the Options bar. With the Quick Selection tool selected, you are going to select each part with that tool by painting a selection inside of each body part. So carefully just click and drag until you see the marching ants surrounding the entire body part that you want to select. Again, feel free to adjust the size of the brush to fit the size of the part. Once you're done, you're going to switch to the Move tool. Click and drag that part that's selected onto your new board. And it's a good idea to label your layers. Use Command D to deselect the part that you have just selected so you can select a new part. And you will continue this process until all the parts are on their own layers onto the new document. Drag the parts over. You may have to hit Command T to rescale the parts. Just remember, hold Shift when you resize and scale all parts so they look like they match. There's going to be some little details in here, like the little strap that hangs off his glasses. You want to make sure that that is just selected all by itself. The cigar that he's holding in his one hand, you want to make sure that's, selected very precisely. And then his cane that he's holding in the other hand. So just be aware of detail. If you want to put all layers on and then select them all and like resize them together, that's fine. Remember, you can tilt. Use all the skills that you have been using. And I'm using this as an active test to see if you can, in fact, do this process. So can you cut things out precisely? Can you move it around? Can you keep things in proportion? And this is going to be your little test to see if you're ready to move on with the rest of the class. Now, if your cutout man is still very large, you can rescale him all at once. So this is what you can do. You can select all the layers at once. To do this, you're going to click on the top body part layer, hold Shift, and click on the bottom body part layer, and all of them will become selected. Then hit Command T, and you can hold Shift and resize. Then hit Return. Once he's to scale, you want to merge all these together. So you want to hit Command E, and they will become all one layer. He's just going to be a man on a page, and all of his parts are together. Now we're going to duplicate that layer. So if you hit Command J on that layer, it will duplicate that layer, and you'll have an opportunity to make that his shadow. And now we have a copy of him. And we're going to take that copy and turn him into a shadow. Go to Edit, Transform, Distort. This will allow us to make the shadow. So you want to pull the top two corners down. So you'll see the two bounding boxes, and you want to pull it down. Now, as he gets farther away from us, his head will be smaller. His feet need to line up with the other feet. So again, you can pull this down. You want to make it look as flat as possible. Now, all shadows have to actually touch whatever they're casting a shadow from. So just make sure that the bottom of the shadow, like both of his feet, are all four of his feet, I guess, are touching. And also, in the back, his head should be a little bit smaller, so you're squeezing that together. It might take some practice. When you're satisfied, you'll hit Return. Now, you want to drag this layer, look at the Layers palette, drag that layer below the man that's not distorted. And that's going to make sure that shadow is under him. Now hit D on the keyboard, and that will set your colors to default, black on top of white. Then you're going to hit X on the keyboard. Hitting X switches the default colors to reverse of that. So black will be in the background. Now we're going to use that background color of black to make the shadow black. So you need to go to Shift, Command, Delete. And if you click all those keys, Shift, Command, Delete, hold them all down at the same time, it will switch that layer to being all solid black. Now I'm going to hit Command T so I can adjust this layer, and I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. I don't need to hit Shift because it is a distortion, because I wanted to make it look like it's more flat. Now let's blur the layer. So you're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. A pop-up will appear, and you'll be able to use this radius slider to pick a blur amount that you like. You don't want it completely blurred out, but just pick one that you like. Click OK when you're finished, and you'll be able to see the blur has been applied. Now we want to go to the layer blending modes. So go over to Layer and then choose blending modes. Choose one that you think you like. This one I used Soft Light, and I kind of like that because it looks like the shadow is more transparent. It's blending into the background. If you have not learned layer masks, you do not have to do this next part. Now here, I used a layer mask. You do not have to do this unless you understand layer masks, because I'm going to fade it out just a little bit more. So what I did is I clicked on the shadow layer and clicked the little rectangle with a circle in the middle. And then I'm using a black paintbrush with a very low opacity, and I'm going to paint the back of that shadow so that it fades out even more. Again, if you don't quite understand these masks, you don't have to do that. Another approach to this is I could create a layer mask and use the gradient tool to have it fade a little bit more as well. But again, if you don't know how to do those, that's fine. You can just leave the layer as it is using the Gaussian blur and the soft light blending mode. You could change the opacity on the layer, but again, we haven't learned too much about that yet, so it's okay if you don't do that part. Now, as always, save it as a Photoshop file and a JPEG, and you're going to turn it in. Good job!